You are not like them." Teacher Patricia Mendonca's voice cut through the classroom air like a sharp blade, her finger pointing directly at Sophia Silva, the only scholarship student in the class. 30 pairs of eyes turned toward the 14-year-old girl who gripped her pencil so tightly that her knuckles turned white. What happened in the next 20 minutes that Tuesday afternoon would destroy a 20-year career and change the fate of 2 lives forever. Elite Hills Academy took up an entire block in the wealthiest neighborhood of Los Angeles. Its mirrored glass walls reflected not only the afternoon sun, but also the status of the families who paid $1,600 a month to have their children study there. Individual iPads at each mahogany desk, uniforms imported from Europe, teachers with masters and doctoral degrees. It was the kind of place where the parking lot looked like a luxury car showroom and where kids' backpacks cost more than a minimum wage paycheck. But in that senior year advanced math class, among immaculate navy blazers and polished Italian shoes, there was one exception. Sophia Silva wore the same uniform as everyone else, but hers had been bought secondhand at the school's thrift sale. Her shoes were domestic, carefully shined every morning to hide the wear. And while her classmates arrived in chauffeured SUVs, Sophia arrived at 6 in the morning with her mother, Maria Silva, who had spent the past 10 years cleaning the very classrooms of that same academy. Maria Silva woke up every day at 4:30 a.m., not by choice but by necessity. The bus that carried her from the outskirts of the city to Elite Hills Academy took 2 hours, and she needed to be there by 7 sharp to start cleaning before the students arrived. 10 years. 10 years scrubbing Italian marble floors, cleaning bathrooms with golden fixtures, dusting off paintings worth more than her house. 10 years of being invisible to parents and students who passed by her as if she were part of the furniture. But Maria had a secret she carried with equal parts pride and fear. Her daughter Sophia wasn't just any girl. From a young age, the child displayed an intelligence that both frightened and amazed. By 3, she could already read fluently. By 5, she was solving math problems that 10-year-olds found difficult. At 8, a teacher at her public school suggested she take an IQ test, but Maria refused. She was afraid. Afraid of drawing attention, afraid of losing her job, afraid that people would discover she sometimes brought Sophia to the academy at dawn when she had no one else to leave her with. It was during one of those early mornings, when Sophia was 9, that everything changed. The girl was sitting in the hallway, waiting for her mother to finish cleaning a classroom, working on problems from an advanced math book she had borrowed from the public library. The academy's principal, Dr. Robert Mendez, had forgotten some documents and returned at 5 in the morning. He found the girl alone, immersed in equations that even his high school students would struggle to solve. "What are you doing here, little one?" he asked, more curious than upset. "Waiting for my mom, sir." "She works here," Sophia replied without lifting her eyes from the book. The principal leaned closer and saw what she was working on: differential calculus. A 9-year-old child was solving differential calculus problems at 5 in the morning in his school's hallway. In the months that followed, Dr. Robert observed Sophia discreetly. He gave her informal tests, chatted with her about various subjects, and grew increasingly impressed. When Sophia turned 11, he made a decision that would change everything. He offered her a full scholarship to study at Elite Hills Academy. Maria cried that day. She cried tears of joy and fear, joy at seeing her daughter have the opportunities she never had. Fear because she knew that environment, knew those people, knew the prejudice that flowed through that place like blue blood. But Sophia insisted. "Mom, I can handle it. I promise I can handle it." And for 3 years, Sophia endured. She endured the sideways glances, the whispers in the hallways, the WhatsApp groups she was never included in. She endured the birthday parties she was never invited to, the group projects where no one wanted her as a partner. She endured it all because she had a bigger goal: to get into the best university in the country on a full scholarship and lift her mother out of that life of servitude. The advanced math class on Tuesday was known as the terror of senior year. Patricia Mendonça, who had been teaching at the academy for 20 years, had a reputation for being brilliant and cruel in equal measure. A graduate of UCLA with a master's from Harvard, she didn't just teach math, she wielded it like a weapon to establish hierarchies in the classroom. Today we're going to solve a problem that was on last year's MIT entrance exam, Patricia announced, writing a complex equation on the digital board. Of course, I don't expect everyone to manage it. Some here have natural limitations. Her gaze landed on Sophia for a fraction of a second. It was always like this. Small humiliations, double-edged comments, condescending smiles. Sophia had learned to keep her head down and let it pass, but today would be different. Would anyone like to try? Patricia asked, already knowing that only the top students would dare. Peter, son of Dr. Alcantara? Marina, daughter of Mr. Gouveia? Peter stood up confidently. His family paid for private lessons with the best math tutor in the city. He began solving the problem on the board, narrating each step with the arrogance of someone used to applause. But halfway through, he made a mistake. A subtle mistake, but one that ruined the entire result. Sophia saw the error immediately. Her mind had already solved the problem 3 different ways, while Peter was still on the first step. She bit her lip, fighting the urge to speak. But when Peter reached the conclusion completely wrong and Patricia began praising the brilliant demonstration of what a quality education looks like, something inside Sophia snapped. "It's wrong," she said softly, but in the silent classroom her voice echoed like a shout. Patricia turned slowly, like a snake preparing to strike. "Excuse me?" The answer is wrong. He made a mistake in the 3rd step when he applied the distributive property. The sign should have been negative, not positive. The silence was so heavy that you could hear the breathing of all 30 students. Peter turned red with anger and humiliation. Marina whispered something about people not knowing their place. And Patricia smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. "Oh, so Miss Silva thinks she knows more than Peter?" Patricia walked slowly toward Sophia's desk. "The janitor's daughter thinks she can correct Dr. Alcantara's son." Sophia held her gaze. "It's not about thinking, teacher. Math doesn't care who my parents are. The answer is wrong." "Stand up," Patricia ordered. Sophia stood slowly. She could feel every pair of eyes on her, some curious, some hostile, most just waiting for the show that was about to unfold. "Take a good look at her," Patricia told the class. "Sophia Silva, a scholarship student. Do you know what that means? It means she studies here for free while your parents pay $1,600 a month. It means she eats the same food as you without paying a cent. It means she uses the same books, the same computers, the same resources as you, all for free." "I have a scholarship for academic merit," Sophia replied, her voice trembling slightly. "Merit?" Patricia laughed. "What merit? The merit of having a mother who cleans bathrooms? The merit of coming from the projects? Or the merit of being lucky enough that our principal took pity on you?" "Teacher, that's..." Sophia began, but Patricia cut her off. "You really think you can correct me? You, who are only here out of charity? Do you really think you are equal to them? Patricia gestured at the rest of the class. Look around you, Sophia. See your classmates. Children of doctors, lawyers, entrepreneurs, politicians, people who will inherit companies, study abroad, make a difference in the world. And you'll go back to the same hole you came from, no matter how many years you spend pretending to be one of us. Tears welled up in Sophia's eyes, but she didn't let them fall. She wouldn't give Patricia the satisfaction. You are not like them! Patricia pointed to Marina and the other girls in the front row, all blonde, all with their Apple watches and designer purses. You never will be. You might sit in the same room, wear the same uniform, but everyone here knows the truth. You're the janitor's daughter, the intruder, the one who doesn't belong. That's when Sophia did something no one expected. She smiled. You're right, teacher. I'm not like them. Her voice was steady now. I'm better. The entire class held its breath. Patricia turned purple with rage. How dare you? Want to bet? Sophia interrupted. The national math contest is in 3 weeks. If I take first place, you admit you were wrong about me, in front of everyone. Patricia laughed with disdain. Sweetheart, do you know how many students compete in that contest? 50,000 of the best students in the country. Geniuses from schools that make this one look like a neighborhood daycare. Then you've got nothing to lose, do you? Sophia pressed, unless you're afraid the janitor's daughter might prove you wrong. The challenge hung in the air. Students looked from Sophia to Patricia as if watching a tennis match. Peter was still frozen at the board, his mistake glaring for anyone willing to check. You know what? Patricia finally said. Let's make it better. If you take first place, which is impossible, I'll resign. 20 years of career, gone. But when you fail, and you will fail, your mother loses her job, both of you out of here, forever. Teacher, that's not fair. A voice from the back began. It was Caleb, one of the few students who occasionally spoke to Sophia. Fair? Patricia turned to him. Life isn't fair, Caleb. Ask Sophia. She knows that better than anyone. Sophia felt the weight of the moment. It wasn't just about her. It was about her mother, about the job that supported them both, about the future they had built with so much sacrifice, but it was also about something bigger. It was about all the times she had lowered her head, all the humiliations she had swallowed, all the moments she had felt less than everyone else. I accept, she said. Patricia smiled triumphantly. Then it settled. 3 weeks, first place at the national math contest, or you're both out of here. She turned to the class. I hope you all learned an important lesson today about knowing your place in the world. The bell rang. Students began filing out, many casting pitying looks at Sophia, others whispering excitedly about the drama they had just witnessed. Marina walked past Sophia and whispered, You just signed your death sentence. Sophia stayed alone in the classroom for a few minutes, staring at the board where Peter's mistake was still visible. She pulled out her old phone with the cracked screen and sent a message to her mother. Mom, I need to talk to you. It's important. When she left the room, she didn't notice Patricia in the hallway, speaking on the phone with someone. Yes, I want all the best students signed up for the national math contest. No, I don't care how much the extra tutoring costs. That brat needs to learn a lesson. War had been declared, and in 3 weeks only one of them would remain at Elite Hills Academy. Sophia walked down the marble stairs of the school with trembling legs. Each step echoed in the empty lobby, since most of the students had already left in their imported cars. She passed through the hallways her mother would be cleaning in a few hours, past the library where she had often hidden during breaks, and finally reached the small janitor's supply room in the basement where she knew she would find Maria. The smell of cleaning products was strong and familiar. Maria was organizing supplies for the night shift, her calloused hands sorting rags and detergents with the efficiency of someone who had repeated the same gestures for a decade. When she saw her daughter, her face lit up with a smile that quickly faded when she noticed Sophia's expression. "What happened, my girl? Why are you still here? Your face is pale." Sophia sat down on the only bench in the room, an old piece of furniture someone had discarded years ago. The words came pouring out, the whole story of the humiliation in class, the correction she had made, Patricia's cruel words, and finally, the bet. As she spoke, she watched her mother's face shift through a range of emotions: anger, fear, pride, and finally, sheer terror. "You bet my job?" Maria dropped the rag from her hands. "Sophia, my God, what have you done? 10 years, my daughter, 10 years working here. It's all we have. How will we pay the rent? How will we eat? How will you keep studying?" Tears began streaming down Maria's tired face, and each one stabbed at Sophia's heart like a knife. "Mom, I can do it. I know I can. You don't know, but I—" Sophia hesitated. There were secrets she had kept even from her mother. "I've been studying. A lot more than you think. More than anyone thinks." Maria sat beside her, taking Sophia's hands into her own. The contrast was painful. Maria's hands, rough and marked by chemicals, and Sophia's still young but already calloused from endless writing. "Daughter, I know you're smart. I know you're special. But there are 50,000 students, the best in the country, students who have private tutors, who take special prep courses, who have every resource in the world. And I have something they don't," Sophia answered, squeezing her mother's hands. "I have hunger. Hunger to prove I deserve to be here. Hunger to show that intelligence doesn't come with a zip code. Hunger to give you the life you deserve." She paused, taking a deep breath. "Mom, give me 3 weeks, just 3 weeks. If I fail, I'll find another job for us both. I'll clean alongside you if I have to. But if I win—" Maria looked into her daughter's eyes and saw something that made her shiver. It wasn't just determination. It was certainty. A frightening certainty in someone so young. "You've been preparing for this already, haven't you? Even before today?" Sophia nodded slowly. "For 3 years, Mom, since I got here. I knew one day I'd have to prove my worth beyond question. I knew one day someone would challenge me to show who I really am. Today was that day." That night they returned home in silence on the crowded bus. The 2-hour ride felt both endless and instantaneous. Their one-bedroom apartment on the city's outskirts, with its peeling walls and leaky ceiling, had never seemed so small and yet so comforting. Sophia went straight to the corner that served as her study space. A makeshift desk built from an old door and 2 sawhorses, lit by a lamp they had salvaged from the school's trash. But when she opened the cabinet next to the desk, Maria gasped. Piles upon piles of notebooks filled with tiny, precise handwriting. Advanced math books in 3 different languages, past contest exams meticulously solved and annotated. Medals Sophia had never shown her, hidden in shoeboxes. "Sophia, what is all this?" "Sit down, Mom. I need to tell you some things." Sophia pulled the room's only chair close to her mother. The weak lamplight cast shadows that danced across the walls as if the secrets themselves were coming alive. "Remember when you worked the night shift and I told you I stayed at the neighbors? I lied. I went to the public library. I stayed there from 6 in the evening until 10 at night, every day. Maria's eyes widened, but Sophia kept going before she could speak. The librarian, Mrs. Carmen, a retired college professor, started noticing what I was studying. She introduced me to other retired professors who frequented the library. Professor John, who had been head of the math department at UCLA, Professor Liu, who came from China and taught at Princeton before retiring here, Dr. Ahmed, who worked at NASA before moving here to care for his elderly mother. The words flowed now like water breaking through a dam. They taught me, Mom, for free, out of love for knowledge, because they saw in me something I didn't even see myself. Professor John said that in 40 years of his career, he had never seen a mind like mine. Professor Liu taught me Mandarin and math at the same time, saying that thinking in another language expands problem-solving ability. Dr. Ahmed showed me how the math I loved could launch rockets into space. Sophia stood and pulled out a folder hidden behind the books. From it, she took out a document that made Maria cover her mouth with her hands. Supervised IQ test, Mom. 165. Genius by international standards, but that's not the important part. She pulled out more papers. First place in the regional math Olympiad 2 years ago. I competed under a false name so no one at school would know. First place in the international online problem-solving competition. An article published under a pseudonym in the Journal of Young Mathematicians on number theory. Maria wept now, silent tears running down her face as she held the papers with trembling hands. Why did you hide this from me? Why, my daughter? Because I was afraid you'd want me to leave elite hills and go to a public school where I could shine without being humiliated. Because I knew you'd suffer even more seeing what I was capable of while watching me pretend to be mediocre every day. Because Sophia knelt by her mother's side. Because I was waiting for the right moment. The moment when I could not just prove my worth, but change our lives for real. The following nights blurred into a haze of strong coffee and complex equations. Sophia slept no more than 3 hours a night. While the rest of the city slept, she dove into problems that could make PhD mathematicians break a sweat. Her secret mentors appeared at alternating times in the public library, each bringing her specific challenges. Professor John with combinatorial analysis problems that seemed impossible until Sophia spotted the hidden pattern. Professor Liu with ancient Chinese mathematical paradoxes that demanded thinking beyond Western logic. Dr. Ahmed with practical applications that turned abstract numbers into satellite trajectories and planetary orbits. You need to sleep, Maria begged every night, watching her daughter grow paler, her eyes darker but brighter with intensity. I'll sleep when I win, Sophia replied, already tackling the next problem before finishing the sentence. At school, Patricia Mendonça launched her own campaign. She gathered the 10 best math students for extra prep sessions, all paid for by eager parents wanting their children to shine. She brought in a private tutor from New York, a contest specialist who charged $200 an hour. She created an exclusive study group that met at Marina's penthouse, overlooking the entire city, with a full buffet served by uniformed waiters. Sophia knew all about it. The students didn't bother lowering their voices when she passed. Patricia's spending a fortune to make sure several of us land in the top 10, Marina said loudly in the hallway. She said even if by some miracle Sophia makes it to the second round, she'll be humiliated in the oral exam. But there were also unexpected surprises. Caleb, The boy who had tried to defend Sophia in class began leaving books on her desk. No notes, no fuss, just books he thought might help. A sophomore girl, Letitia, who was also on scholarship but hid it better than Sophia, whispered in the hallway, "There's an online study group, totally anonymous. I'll send you the link by email." Even Mr. Joseph, the night janitor who worked with Maria, started saving math magazines for Sophia that students had tossed away. It was on a Thursday, 10 days before the contest, that Maria discovered the true scale of what was happening. She had come in early to cover a sick colleague's shift and found Sophia in the school library, surrounded by papers, her face lit only by the screen of an old computer they had allowed her to use. But she wasn't alone. Through a video call, Maria saw 3 elderly faces watching intently as Sophia solved a problem on the whiteboard behind her. "More elegant, Sophia," said the voice with a Chinese accent. "Math is art. Your solution is correct, but it can be more beautiful." "Liu is right," another voice agreed. "In the contest, they don't just look for the correct answer. They look for elegance, creativity, that touch of genius that separates the excellent from the transcendent." Maria stepped back quietly, her heart torn with equal pride and fear. Her daughter wasn't just preparing for a contest, she was preparing for a war, and she had a secret army at her side. The final days were intense. Sophia barely ate, surviving on coffee and granola bars. Her notebooks multiplied, filled with increasingly complex and elegant solutions. She had developed her own system of notation, a mix of traditional mathematical symbols with Chinese characters and coded annotations only she could understand. It was as if she were creating her own mathematical language, a way of thinking that transcended any traditional method of teaching. The Sunday of the contest dawned gray and damp with a light drizzle so typical of Los Angeles in the fall. The test site was UCLA, on the main campus. Sophia arrived with Maria by bus, 2 hours before the scheduled time. They sat on a cold concrete bench watching the other candidates arrive in chauffeur-driven cars, accompanied by fathers in expensive suits and mothers in designer dresses. Patricia Mendonça arrived in a van with the 10 Elite Hill students, all wearing custom school t-shirts. When she saw Sophia, her smile was predatory. "There's still time to back out, dear. Spare yourself the humiliation. I might even convince the principal to let your mom keep her job if you admit right now that you overreached." Sophia didn't respond. She simply closed her eyes and recited silently the words Professor John had told her the night before. "Math doesn't care about your last name, your bank account, or your zip code. It only cares about the truth. And the truth, my young one, is on your side." The signal sounded. 5,000 candidates entered the university's main building. The first round would be a 4-hour exam with 50 multiple-choice questions and 10 essay problems. Only the top 100 would move on to the second round a week later. And only the top 10 from the second round would advance to the oral final, where the national champion would be decided. Sophia sat at her assigned desk, number 4321. Around her, teens from all over the United States opened their designer pencil cases, organized their scientific calculators, some murmuring prayers or focus mantras. Sophia had only 3 number 2 pencils, an old eraser, and the hunger she had carried for 14 years. When the proctor authorized the start, 5,000 pages flipped at once, creating a sound that swept through the gym like the beating wings of a giant bird. Sophia looked at the first question. She smiled. It was number theory, exactly the topic of the article she had published anonymously. She began to write, And for 4 hours, the world ceased to exist. It was just her, the numbers, and the elegant dance of equations resolving under her fingers. The week after the contest was the longest of Sophia's life. Every minute dragged like an hour, every hour like a full day. At Elite Hills Academy, the air crackled with anticipation. Patricia Mendonça strode through the halls with the confidence of a general who had already won the war before the last battle. She had set up a display board in the main lobby where the results would be posted the moment they came out, at 3 p.m. on Friday. "So we can celebrate our winners," she said at the staff meeting, shooting a pointed look toward where Maria was cleaning the room's windows. Sophia kept attending classes, but it was as if she existed inside a bubble separate from reality. The teachers ignored her completely, not even taking attendance when she was present. Students edged away as she passed, as if failure were contagious. Only Caleb met her eyes, occasionally leaving a chocolate bar on her desk with a simple note, "Stay strong." Maria, meanwhile, had quietly started looking for other jobs, bracing for the worst. At night, mother and daughter held each other in silence, both pretending to watch TV while their minds circled the same obsessive thought, what if? On Thursday night, the eve of the results, Sophia couldn't sleep. She stood at the window of their small apartment, looking out at the distant city lights, that Los Angeles that seemed split into two unbridgeable worlds. On one side, the wealthy neighborhoods where her classmates slept in king-size beds, unconcerned about a future already bought and paid for. On the other, the outer neighborhoods where she and millions of others fought every day just to exist. Between those worlds lay knowledge, the only bridge Sophia knew, the only hope of crossing. Friday arrived under heavy clouds promising a storm. Sophia and Maria reached the school at their usual time, 6 in the morning. Maria went straight to work, but her hands trembled so much she spilled the bucket of cleaning solution twice. Sophia hid in the library trying to read, but the words danced on the page without meaning. By 2:50 p.m., the main lobby was already packed. Parents had been invited to the celebration, turning the space into a sea of Armani suits and Louis Vuitton bags. Patricia stood at the center, surrounded by her favorite students, all confident that at least 3 of them would be among the top 100. Marina wore a brand new dress bought specially for the occasion. Peter had gotten a fresh haircut and polished his Italian shoes. They formed a semicircle in front of the board, still covered by a red cloth as if it were the unveiling of a work of art. Sophia stayed as far away as possible, half hidden behind a marble column. Maria had put down her work and stood at her side, gripping her hand hard enough to leave marks. The digital clock in the lobby struck 3 p.m. The principal, Dr. Robert Mendez, approached the board with a sealed envelope he had just received via the contest committee's official email. He seemed uncomfortable with the circus Patricia had staged, but he hadn't had the nerve to cancel it. "Ladies and gentlemen," his voice echoed through the PA system they'd installed for the occasion, "the results of the National Math Contest first round." With a theatrical flourish that was clearly not his idea, he pulled away the red cloth. The board revealed a list of 100 names in alphabetical order, not by rank. A murmur rippled through the crowd as everyone searched for familiar names. Marina was there. Peter, too. 3 more Elite Hills students had made it. Patricia had already begun her victory speech when someone shouted from the back, "Sophia Silva is on the list." The silence that followed was so deep you could hear the fluorescent lights hum. Every head turned toward the corner where Sophia stood. Patricia went pale, then flushed, then purple. It must be a mistake, she said loudly enough for all to hear. "We'll see the actual rankings when they come out. Making the top 100 is one thing. Being in the top 10 is something else entirely." The second round took place a week later, again at UCLA. Of the 100 qualifiers, Sophia was the only one to arrive by public transit. The exam this time was even more brutal. 6 hours of proof-based problems that demanded not only knowledge but creativity, elegance, and that indefinable touch that separates the very good from the truly brilliant. Sophia wrote to the last page, to the very last second, her solutions flowing like mathematical poetry, each proof more beautiful than the last. The 10 days waiting for the second round results were even worse. Patricia had intensified her campaign of psychological warfare. She spread rumors that Sophia had been seen cheating, that she'd received illegal help, that her name on the list was a clerical error. She even hinted at a parents' meeting that people from certain backgrounds had special advantages in standardized competitions, an insinuation that made even some of her supporters uncomfortable. But Sophia had changed. She was no longer the girl who lowered her head and swallowed humiliation. Something had shifted in her during those test hours, as if she had finally found her true voice. When Patricia tried to belittle her again in class, saying that some people don't know when to stop dreaming, Sophia replied calmly, "And some people don't know when to stop fearing change, teacher." The second round results came out on a Wednesday, directly on the contest website. Sophia was at the public library with her mentors when the page refreshed. Professor Liu saw it first, her elderly eyes filling with tears behind her reading glasses. "Sophia," she said in Mandarin, her voice trembling, "you didn't just pass. You're in first place. First among the 10 finalists, with the highest score ever recorded in the contest history." Sophia's legs gave out. Professor John caught her as Dr. Ahmed shouted with joy, his usually reserved demeanor completely forgotten. The librarian, Mrs. Carmen, began to cry and hug everyone. It was as if each of them had won the contest, as if every hour spent teaching that brilliant girl had been worth more than any paycheck they'd ever received in their illustrious careers. The news reached the school before Sophia did. When she and Maria entered the lobby the next day, the silence was different. It was no longer the silence of contempt, but of shock, disbelief. The world turned upside down. Patricia was in her office, door locked, refusing to come out. Marina was crying in the bathroom. Her third place, which would have been a point of pride in any other context, now felt like a humiliating loss. Peter hadn't even made the top 10. But the final was still to come. A public oral exam, live-streamed, where the 10 finalists would solve problems in real time before a panel of renowned mathematicians. It would be the following Saturday in UCLA's main auditorium with seating for 2,000. Patricia clung to this last hope like a castaway to a scrap of wood. We'll see how she does when she has to think in front of everyone, with no time for her tricks, she said to anyone who would listen. The auditorium was packed on the day of the final. Elite Hills Academy had chartered 3 buses to bring students, parents, and teachers. Patricia sat in the front row, dressed as if she were the one competing. Marina's mother had hired a professional videographer to capture what she still hoped would be her daughter's triumph. But there were others in the audience too. Professor John, Professor Liu, and Dr. Ahmed were there, wearing their best old suits. Mrs. Carmen had closed the library early and convinced half a dozen other staffers to come support Sophia. Even Mr. Joseph, the night janitor, was present, having asked for time off from his second job to be there. The 10 finalists were called onto the stage. Sophia was visibly the poorest among them, her simple school uniform contrasting with the designer outfits of the other competitors. Some were familiar faces from the Olympiad circuit, prodigies whose resumes included summer programs at MIT and internships at NASA. Sophia looked like an intruder on that stage, and Patricia wasn't the only one who thought so. But when the first problem was projected on the giant screen, something in the air changed. Sophia was the first to rise and walk to the board, while the others were still reading the prompt she was already writing. Not hurriedly, but with a fluency that seemed impossible. Her equations flowed as if she were transcribing something that already existed somewhere, just waiting to be revealed. When she finished, 5 minutes before any other competitor had even begun, the panel fell silent. One of the judges, a professor emeritus from Caltech, took off his glasses, cleaned them, put them back on, and asked Sophia to explain her solution. Sophia's voice rang through the auditorium with a clarity no one expected. She not only explained her solution, but presented 3 alternative methods, each more elegant than the last. She cited theorems most in attendance had never heard of, drew connections between areas of math that seemed utterly distinct, and ended with an observation about how that specific problem could be generalized to address an open question in number theory. When she finished, the silence in the auditorium was so complete you could hear 2,000 people holding their breath at once. The second problem was even more astonishing. Marina tried to solve it at the same time as Sophia, a desperate bid to show she was capable too. But while Marina followed the traditional route, the path taught in the best schools by the best tutors, Sophia created something new. Right there, in front of everyone, she invented a method of solution that made one of the judges stand and start applauding before she even finished. "This is publishable," he said into the microphone, forgetting the event was being live-streamed. This young woman just created something that deserves to be in an academic journal. The third and final problem was considered impossible to solve completely within the allotted time. It was a contest tradition, a problem that tested not who could finish, but who could go the farthest. Sophia looked at the prompt for exactly 30 seconds, smiled, and began to write. 15 minutes later, she had not only solved the problem fully but had found an error in the original statement, corrected it, solved both the corrected and the incorrect versions, and explained why the error was interesting from a theoretical standpoint. The chair of the panel, a mathematician who had won the Fields Medal, the highest honor in mathematics, stood and did something unprecedented in the contest's history. She left the dais, walked up to where Sophia stood, and shook her hand. "Miss Silva," she said into the microphone, "in 40 years of my career, I have never seen anything like this. You have not only won this contest, you have just set a new standard for what a young mind can achieve." The auditorium erupted in applause. Not the polite clapping of an academic ceremony, but genuine, emotional applause. The kind that happens when you witness something truly extraordinary. Maria was crying so hard that Mr. Joseph had to hold her up. Sophia's mentors hugged each other like children. And in the middle of that celebration, a figure rose from the front row and started toward the exit. Patricia Mendonça, her face a mask of humiliation and fury, tried to slip away unnoticed, but Sophia saw her. And in a move no one expected, she took the microphone. "Professor Mendonça." Her voice cut through the noise, making everyone fall silent. "You made a bet with me. I think it's time to honor it." Patricia froze halfway up the aisle as every camera swung toward her, including the live stream that already had over 100,000 viewers online. The moment had arrived. The moment of complete reversal, when the humiliated would become the victor, and the humiliator would face the consequences of her own poison. Patricia Mendonça stood frozen in the auditorium aisle, lit by the flashes of dozens of phones and the professional cameras now broadcasting her humiliation nationwide. The video of the bet made 3 weeks earlier had gone viral during the competition. Someone from the class had recorded everything and posted it as soon as Sophia was announced the winner. Within minutes, hashtags like janitor's daughter and Chuan Chonosh real merit were trending on X, formerly Twitter. The teacher who had so confidently said, "You are not like them," was now feeling the full weight of her own words boomeranging back. "Professor," Sophia continued into the mic, her voice calm but carrying an authority that hadn't been there 3 weeks before. "You said I wasn't like the other students. You were right. I'm not the same. I'm better. Not because of my parents' money, not because of my last name, not because of the neighborhood where I live. I'm better because while they were learning math, I was learning hunger. While they were learning equations, I was learning endurance. While they were learning to solve problems on paper, I was learning to solve the problem of existing in a world that told me every day I didn't belong where I was." Silence filled the auditorium. Even the live stream seemed to pause, the live chat comments freezing for a few seconds. Patricia tried to speak, but no sound came out. 20 years of unquestioned authority had evaporated in 20 minutes of brilliant mathematics. She looked around for support and found only reproachful stares, even from the parents who used to flatter her. Marina was crying in her mother's arms, not out of sorrow for losing, but out of shame for having participated in that system of humiliation. Peter kept his head down, finally understanding that his mistake on that fateful day had been more than mathematical. The following Monday, Elite Hills Academy woke up transformed. Reporters from every major outlet were at the gate, hoping to interview the prodigy who challenged the system. The Board of Trustees had met in an emergency session Sunday night, and the decisions were swift and definitive. Patricia Mendonça was suspended immediately pending a formal investigation. A full inquiry was opened into years of possible discrimination and psychological abuse. And Maria Silva, the janitor who had been invisible in those halls for 10 years, was called into the principal's office, not to be fired, but to receive an offer that made her weep with joy and disbelief. "Ms. Silva," Dr. Roberts said, visibly moved and equally ashamed, "you know this school better than anyone. You know every corner, every classroom, every problem. More importantly, you raised and educated one of the brightest minds ever to pass through here, doing it with resources that are a fraction of what our other parents spend in a single month. We'd like you to coordinate our new Inclusion and Talent program. With a coordinator's salary, of course. $45,000 a year with full benefits." Maria had to sit down. It was more than she had earned in all her 10 years of cleaning combined. Sophia, at her side, held her hand as she processed the change, from janitor to coordinator, from invisible to essential, from humiliated to respected. The reversal was complete and poetic. But the changes didn't stop there. Before they even left the office, Sophia's phone began ringing nonstop. MIT, Harvard, Princeton, Oxford, Cambridge, every top university in the world wanted to offer full scholarships to the girl who had shattered every record in the national math contest. What happened in the following weeks was something sociologists would later call the Sophia effect. The case had touched a raw nerve in American society, brutal inequality masked by a facade of meritocracy. Other elite schools started revising their scholarship policies. Not out of sudden goodwill, but out of fear of becoming the next Patricia Mendonça to go viral. The U.S. Department of Education announced a national program to identify talent in underserved communities with dedicated funding. Tech companies set up scholarship funds for low-income prodigies, competing with one another not to look indifferent to the issue. Elite Hills Academy transformed overnight. The Inclusion and Talent program coordinated by Maria wasn't window dressing. They created a system where scholarship students received dedicated mentorship, mental health support, and access to every resource paying students enjoyed. More importantly, they implemented a strict anti-discrimination code with severe penalties, from suspension to expulsion, applying to students and teachers alike. Tuition rose to $1,800 a month to fund the program, and surprisingly, no parent pulled their child out. On the contrary, a wait list formed for families hoping to enroll in the school that produced Sofia Silva. Patricia Mendonça lost more than her job. The investigation revealed years of systematic abuse, always aimed at the most vulnerable students. 15 former students came forward with similar stories of humiliation and discrimination. Her teaching license was revoked, and she became persona non grata in the elite education circuit. The $2 million condo in the Hills had to be sold to cover legal costs. The last anyone heard, she was tutoring basic math to make ends meet, an irony not lost on anyone who knew the story. But the deepest transformation happened among the students themselves. Marina, once one of the main perpetrators of bullying against Sofia, went through a profound crisis of conscience. She approached Sofia before graduation, not with the hollow apology her parents had scripted, but with genuine tears and a painful confession. "I knew you were better than me," she said. "I always knew, and it terrified me. Because if the janitor's daughter was better than me, what did that say about me? About everything my parents taught me about deserving to be where I am?" Sofia, with a maturity no 14-year-old should be forced to have, replied, "It says you're a victim too, Marina. A victim of a system that taught you your worth came from your parents' money, not from who you are. You can still choose to be different." They never became friends, but Marina changed. She started volunteering, began questioning the values she had absorbed unthinkingly, and used her privilege to open doors instead of closing them. A year later, on a sunny December afternoon, Sofia was in her dorm room in Cambridge, England. She had chosen Cambridge over MIT or Harvard because she'd found a program that combined pure mathematics with social justice, using mathematical models to tackle inequality. Her room was simple but cozy, with a photo of her and Maria on graduation day in a place of honor on the desk. Next to it was a photo with her mentors from the public library, all smiling proudly at the airport on the day she left. She was in the middle of a video call with Maria, who now not only ran the program at Elite Hills, but also advised 5 other schools that had adopted similar models. "Mom, you won't believe this," Sofia said, her face lit with excitement. "My advisor says my work on mathematical models for distributing educational opportunities could be revolutionary. He wants me to present at an international conference next year." Maria smiled, the kind of smile only a mother who has watched her daughter overcome the impossible can give. "I always knew, my girl, I always knew you were special. But do you know what I'm proudest of? Not your intelligence. I'm proud you didn't lose your humanity along the way. I'm proud you're using your gift to open doors for others, not to close them." After they hung up, Sofia walked to the window of her dorm, looking out at Cambridge's centuries-old buildings. She thought of Patricia Mendonça, who had sent a letter asking for forgiveness a few months earlier. She hadn't replied, not out of spite, but because some lessons need to be complete to be effective. She thought of all the Sophias and Mariahs still out there, fighting systems that told them they weren't the same, didn't belong, should be grateful for scraps. She picked up her notebook, the same kind of cheap notebook she had used when studying in secret at the public library, and began to write. Not equations this time, but a letter. A letter for the mentoring program she was creating, connecting low-income prodigies with retired academics around the world exactly as it happened to her. The program's name? Bridges. Because that's what the world needed. Not walls between the haves and the have-nots, but bridges. And if math had taught her anything, it was that the shortest distance between 2 points is always a straight line, no matter how many obstacles try to bend the path. The sun set over Cambridge, painting the sky gold and red, the same colors as the Los Angeles sky Sophia used to watch from the window of their small apartment on the city's edge. Some skies change, she thought. Others stay the same. But what really matters is that everyone, no matter where they're looking from, has a right to the same vastness, the same chance to dream, the same opportunity to prove they deserve to be where they are, not because of where they came from, but because of how far they're willing to go. And Sophia Silva, the janitor's daughter who dared to say she wasn't the same but better, was only beginning her journey. A journey that started in humiliation and transformed into triumph. A journey that proved true merit knows no zip code, that intelligence has no social class, and that sometimes, just sometimes, poetic justice isn't just poetry, it's pure mathematics, a perfect equation where the final result is greater than the sum of all its parts, where one girl plus one mother plus a stack of old books plus a handful of retired professors plus a fierce hunger for justice equals infinity. Because when you open a door that was locked, you don't just free the one who walks through it, you free everyone who will follow. And that, Sophia knew as she closed her notebook and prepared for another night of study, that was the real prize. Not the medal, not the recognition, not the scholarship to Cambridge. The real prize was knowing her victory wasn't hers alone. It belonged to every Maria who scrubs the floor so her Sophias can touch the sky.